Hello, and welcome to my first episode of Flat Out Helpful. My name is Jared, and I will be your host in this series that looks at common as well as technical-based arguments made by flat earthers, and explains why these arguments are bad, as well as offering evidence to the contrary. Today we will be looking at a rather basic, yet highly erroneous argument made by flat earthers and moon landing hoaxers alike. This argument's conclusion is that NASA never went to the moon, or will never go, based on the premise that they claim to have destroyed said technology. When this argument is made, generally it will be backed up by this video interview of NASA astronaut Donald Pettit. So let's go ahead and watch the video.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
It's quite clear that Donald said we used to have the technology to go to the moon, but we destroyed it, and it will be hard to rebuild it to go again. The first red flag here is that Donald makes it clear we used to have the technology. So using this quote to say we never went really doesn't make any sense, as it is agreeing with the sentiment we could have gone back in the 60s. Something that will also help is figuring out what exactly this technology is that Donald claims NASA has destroyed. Since he just says technology, and is referring to the moon landings in this context, he is most likely talking about the Apollo program, and more specifically, the Saturn V rocket that was used as part of that to send people to the moon. Now, if we actually destroyed the technology to go to the moon, as Donald said in the interview, we should not have any of this technology just lying around, or even being used actively. However, there are still two unused and intact Saturn V moon rockets. One is on display at the Johnson Space Center in Texas, while the other is on display at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. There is also active use of this technology that goes far beyond the Apollo program. A great example of this would be the J2X. The J2X was originally a redesign of the J2 high-powered hydrogen-oxygen engine that was used on upper stages of the Saturn 1B and Saturn V. The J2X had its first successful hot fire test in 2011. Now I could go on for a good while about the many other examples of Apollo tech being archived or reused, such as with the AJ-10 that was used as the Apollo service module's main engine and was then used as the space shuttle's orbital maneuvering thrusters. However, the examples I've already provided clearly debunk what Donald has said, leaving us with a very pressing question. Why would he say this if it clearly isn't true? Something we should establish first is that Donald is not infallible. He may be a NASA astronaut, but he, nor NASA as an entity, are infallible. That means that like any other person on this planet, Donald can, and likely will, say something that is wrong. The point being that basically what Donald has said in the interview segment is wrong. Simple as that. That doesn't mean that because he said this, NASA was lying. As far as we know, this was a poorly worded statement made on his own accord, and there is no evidence really to suggest otherwise. Also, in regard to what he said about building back the technology to go again being a painful process, this too is a poorly worded statement. The technology to go has always been there since we first went. However, just because we can do something doesn't mean we will always do it. If anything, technology has advanced since then and we can do more with it than before, but complications of how NASA works as a government agency tend to supersede this initiative. However, the whole mess about a long delay in their return to the moon and arguments relating to that is a subject for another video. So when somebody uses the argument that because NASA, or more specifically Donald Pettit, claims to have destroyed the tech and thus never went or will never go to the moon, be sure to remind them that Donald Pettit is not infallible, and this is the case of a person just making a mistake and saying something wrong, and that there is evidence to the contrary of their position. Thank you so much for watching, and I leave the comment section open for discussion, including suggestions for claims and arguments for future videos. If you like this and want to see more, make sure to like and subscribe. Also, feel free to share my video, and I encourage you to use it in your debates against the broken logic of flat earthers, and be a light out there in the midst of misinformation and deception.